Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about Salesforce niche staffing. Let's get started. So prior than we will talk about niche staffing related to Salesforce, I would like to let you know what will be our agenda. So we will talk about what is Salesforce and why it matters, what are basic products of Salesforce, technical stack and common tools that we are using when we're working with Salesforce, common Salesforce roles, how to check Salesforce CVs and certifications. So let's get started. First of all, what is Salesforce? So Salesforce is a company with a big history. At this moment, they are on market for more than 25 years, and they are mostly focused on the cloud-based solution. So that company was nominated a lot of times as one of the best places for work in different countries for a number of years in a row. So that company was actually formed by Mark Benioff. He in the past was working for Oracle, and he was one of the key top management person from Oracle. But then he decided actually to leave that company and organize his own. And since the time that company showed very big growth, so Salesforce was mentioned in the Fortune 500. It was admitted by Forbes, so it was even in the Fortune 100 best companies to work for, and so on and so forth. And if we will talk about the market, Salesforce at this moment mostly working with United States clients, so the majority of their market is actually located here. So it's on the first place, then United Kingdom, and then other countries. So if we will talk about how Salesforce is actually look like compared to the competitors, we could see that Salesforce actually occupies a significant market. It's about 23%, and their nearest competitors are far from them. So at this moment, it's should be understandable from here why Salesforce experts, are extremely needed for the market if this CRM system or products related to Salesforce are actually very required to be in the market. So even if we will talk about revenue, we could see that Salesforce growing each year and they showing, like stable growth. So that's why, like it's another indicator that they're actually doing well and they understand the market pretty well. So number of Salesforce employees at this moment, it's around 80,000 of employees. So it will definitely have an effect how fast that product is actually growing up. So they're getting new features, like a couple of times per year to releases, and it indicates that they are growing pretty fast. But it's not only one way how they are, let's say, growing. Another way how they grow, it's actually Salesforce acquisitions. So Salesforce actually buying a lot of companies, and it was one of the way how they're growing from the beginning of the company, right? And as you could see, they're spending millions on the buying key products, but not only buying the key products, but also buying the market which is behind these products. So that's how they're getting new and new areas where they could actually sell their product. If we will talk about what kind of companies are actually using, other companies trust Salesforce. So we could see that 90% of Fortune 500 companies use Salesforce. So it's already, like a good indicator that they're trusted. And if big companies are working with the systems, and it look like it makes sense, for others to take their look for Salesforce as well. So another thing which is related to Salesforce is their App Exchange Online Market. So it's kind of app store where different organizations could put their applications, components, solution integrations, report, even connectors, whatever, right? What is actually prepared and could be exposed to other users for them to use it as well. So it's available in that market, and it's actually, like another way how partners of Salesforce could actually gain some money building solution for Salesforce. So it's not only for building solution for, let's say, companies themselves, but sometimes companies building solution actually to sell them, and sometimes company even building solution if they would like to be, let's say, acquired by Salesforce itself. So it's actually show us another area from where we could get potential, let's say, workplaces for potential candidates. So now let's talk about Salesforce and see what are their key products. So first of all, when Salesforce just started in 1999, they started as software as a service. So it means that actually everything was on their side. They started to actually maintain a network, storage, servers, like everything related to it. And even their first product, which they included into their platform, it was Sales Cloud. And it was completely out of the box solution, right? So that's why Hero was an application, provided by Salesforce. But then later, then realize that it will be much more better and it will be more successful if they will actually turn Salesforce and will also share it as a platform. So in that case, customers will be able to make a custom databases, like custom tables in databases, so make custom connections and all this kind of stuff, plus build a custom application for customizations on top of existing solutions. So that's why Salesforce is actually selling their platform as a platform as well as software as a service, because they have, like both models how they're serving. So if you will talk about what was the initial ideas related to Salesforce CRM, there actually was the following. So first of all, that application should be accessible from any place at any time. And you could imagine that in 1999, it was, let's say, very, very good idea because there was a tons of company who was maintaining their old servers. And it was hard, right? That's why Salesforce decided to build something completely new. And another item was its easy maintenance and platform upgrade, of course, because if you're maintaining servers, you have to upgrade them, right? You need to restore application and so on and so forth. So that's why they included it from the beginning. So then they have a model for pre-built products, right, with option to customize it, something what we just discussed. Then another principle that they followed, it was a subscription selling model. So it means that they are selling per user per month. So we just paid for your license, right? And you could immediately start to use your Salesforce instance and do whatever it's required. So not servers for clients to support, right? So Salesforce taking care about only infrastructure stuff. So quick start out of the box interface. It should be cloud-based and one platform for everything. So when they put this idea for one platform for everything, they actually made sure that if some company will migrate from their own servers to Salesforce. So in that case, there will be situation when they will be able to easily integrate, do the data migration and all this kind of stuff. So initially, Salesforce was positioned as a CRM system, which is allowing us to actually build everything which is required to do a business between company and customer to manage this relationship and automate everything what is required and help the persons to actually communicate with customers. But later they make it even bigger, right? And now it could automate business to business segment as well, or it's also allow it to have a tons of customization which are required, or even to have a custom product in general. So that's why, let's say, Salesforce included, based on their ideas, like these basic principles into their platform architecture. And that's why we could see that, like all these kind of things are actually available. So first of all, it's easy access from browser, right? You just need to open their site and you could immediately start to work with the Salesforce, or you could use and work with the Salesforce via mobile app, which is also mentioned here. They have their own app storage, right, where you could grab something and install directly onto your org and start to use it. Also, there is a metrics and possibility to review how you're actually dealing with your product. Here is a site from where you could see a real-time information about Salesforce performance, security, and updates. So also there is, like some stuff related to actually to the architecture of the platform, like a multi-tenant and metadata architecture stuff. So if we are talking about hiring related to Salesforce, we need to first of all understand one of the key principles. Salesforce at this moment, let's say, um, have a lot of their own products, so they acquired a lot of companies. And if guys looking for the Salesforce specialist, sometimes it might be specialist in one specific product which the specific customer decided to buy, and it's not always required for to have a specialist from another area, because for example, if you're a specialist in one cloud or product from Salesforce, it sometimes means that you could not work just with another cloud because you don't have enough experience or you don't understand the business acumen and so on and so forth. So that's why it's important to highlight that when you're working with a Salesforce, it's really good when you're hiring some people to make sure that they understand or worked in the past with a specific product. So Salesforce at this moment contains a lot of solutions which are industry specific, like for example, health cloud, manufacturing cloud, communication cloud, media cloud, like insurance and so on and so forth, right? There is a bunch of them. And plus to it, they have, like these products, which is allowing to cover it. So we already discussed it a bit. Sales Cloud, but also they have Service Cloud, which is allowing to do a service. They have marketing for marketing, like commerce, Data Cloud, W, MuleSoft. They have their own AI stuff related to Agentforce, where they're investing so much, right? So there is a tons of different kind of stuff. Plus, as you could see, what kind of industries they are actually covering, right? Like at retail, technology, and others and others. Um, so that's why we need to be a specific specialist in the specific area. All right, let's move on. So here an example of one of the products. It's Sales Cloud. So Salesforce is actually a flagship product for Salesforce, and it was originally, let's say, included into the release of Salesforce in 1999. And that product actually contains stuff which are actually allowing salespersons to sell faster, to understand pipeline, to understand where there opportunity, manage the cases related to opportunity, and actually give a transparency related to this all sales which are happening for the specific customers. So in the Salesforce, as a part of the Sales Cloud, we also have a features which is actually allowing us to see what might be the next best action for that specific opportunity to be able to move it to the closed won position, right, rather than to have it closed lost. So all this kind of stuff are actually available right now, and guys who is actually using Sales Cloud could use it. And together with the Sales Cloud, here is like specific inbox functionality which are related to the sales area, right? And in that case, when Salesforce actually tried to test how that product is actually working, they were able to admit that it's actually increased sales productivity by 27% because it's clear, it's transparent. There are a lot of good stuff. You could send emails directly from Salesforce and so on and so forth. So it's one of the flagship products. And there is, as I mentioned, bunch of let's say processes, right, and bunch of stuff which is available out of the box. And if guys trying to actually hire someone who should work for them and help them to actually develop stuff for Sales Cloud, they're looking for the person who first of all understand, like how the product works, what is the basic terminology, what is opportunity, what is the cases, and so on and so forth. And that person should also understand what kind of functionality is actually available in that cloud. Because if guys will ask, like for some functionality, and that person will build a custom one, will provide estimation for custom one, but they will know that there is, like out of the box ones, and there will be questions why you did not consider or did not suggest for us that, like out of the box solution, which is, could be configured just in 5 minutes. So that's why it's always important for us to have, like the person who is understand it and who knows how to customize it. So another product that we will talk about is CPQ. So that product now call it actually Revenue Cloud. So Salesforce actually combined it together CPQ, CPQ Billing, and CPQ Advanced Approvals together and put it under the brand of Revenue Cloud. So Salesforce loves this kind of format for the name, whereas everything ends with a cloud like Sales Cloud, Revenue Cloud, Service Cloud, and so on and so forth. And they actually obtained in the past. It's through the Steelbricks acquisition, right? And after that, they converted it into their own product. But when they bought Steelbricks company, right, they not just, let's say, acquired them, but they also grabbed their market, right? Because there was, like a good market, let's say, around this product who was already using this solution, right? And they would just bought it, and now they're selling it by themselves, right? So it's another example, let's say, how Salesforce growing, right? So their solution was prepared for Salesforce. They admitted, they found it, they, let's say, bought the product, right? Now it's available directly from Salesforce, and, like, it's very, very popular solution. And at this moment, it's actually, like based on the results of investigation from Salesforce side, it's actually allows to make a 20% faster quote to cash cycle, which is also really important. And here idea is the same, right? If you are looking for some developer who needs to make a customization or set up for us for CPQ, that person needs to understand internal process. He needs to understand what is a quote to cash flow, right? What is a man's, flow, and so on and so forth. So the person should have an understanding of the specific area where he will need to work and how to actually do it. What is the data model of that specific product? So the same, is related to the Service Cloud. So Service Cloud is another product where Salesforce is actually doing everything to make sure that customers could be well served by the actual company where they need to get support, right? Here's, different kind of stuff which might be included. There might be call center integrated. There might be service for response packages. There might be some specific analytics. There might be Service Cloud voice. There might be Einstein included, like in digital engagement channels might be connected, like possibility to send messages directly to Salesforce agents through WhatsApp or other platforms. So all this kind of stuff are actually available here. And at this moment, based on the Salesforce notes, this product allowed to increase customer satisfaction by 67%. So, there is a bunch of idea again the same, like when you're looking for a specific person, that specific person for that specific cloud should understand what is related to. So then Experience Cloud, it's a product which is allowing to build, like self-service portals or sites or wherever, right, which is required to make it publicly available and show some CRM data, right, which is will showing up on the public website. So if required, it's also available in the Salesforce, and we could use a product, like as a separate one, and sometimes we could see that some jobs, let's say, or roles are especially looking for the person who is pretty experienced in Experience Cloud. So it will be related to this. And again, that person will need to know how to make some pages public to the user, how to make audiences, how to share specific, for example, this banner should be shown for a person who loves that kind of bikes, right? But maybe for another guys, it should be different content. So all this kind of stuff, like available, and the person should understand. So next product, it's a field service, right? So just for your information, guys, we will review a couple of products, not all of them, right? Just to build your understanding of those products are actually different, but all of them are actually living on top of Salesforce platform. So when we're talking about field service, it's actually a product which is allowing us to work with any kind of things which are related to the workers in the field. So that means that let's imagine that our company is actually related to internet provider, right? And for example, our workers need to install routers in different locations, need to do a service work, and so on and so forth. So we have finally agents, let's say, in the field, right? So in that case, we need some territory management. We need to understand who is going where and when. Let's say, and make sure that we have, like optimal appointment schedule. So all this kind of stuff could be actually done through field service, and plus there is a possibility for us to do also inventory through that product, right? So it's also a very good product, and some customers use it sometimes together with other clouds or sometimes separately, right? But it's another thing, right? Another product, another data model, another flows, another processes, another skill set which is required for the person who should work on that kind of, let's say, product. So there are, of course, a bunch of different other products, right? But we will not touch all of them, but rather we will jump to tech stack for Salesforce experts. So Salesforce for a couple of last years, or maybe even from beginning, they're looking for a way how business and persons and admins could actually build the flows for the process automation with something which is might be called visual, let's say, programming, right? It's when you have some specific blocks, right, and you could use them in order to be able to build some business process. So in that case, we have on the Salesforce side Salesforce Flow, and when we open Flow Builder, so that is an application, we could simply drag and drop different components, connect them together, make sure that data passes through, and in that case, we will get some business process with a screen, with UI if required, and so on and so forth. At the same time, Salesforce continued to invest in these flows, and now these flows becoming even more powerful because now we could do things like a background logic, right? It could handle platform events, it could work like a trigger, it could be scheduled, and all this kind of stuff. So it's not just should be a screen flow, right? But it might be a backend flow. So next thing that we will review is Apex. Apex is a programming language specially prepared for Salesforce. and it's bring a lot of like functionality which seems like Java. So it's object-oriented language. It's like let's say very 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 similar, I would say. And at this moment, it's actually allowing us to build any kind of background processes on the Salesforce. It might be a controller for a class, it might be a trigger, it might be a batch class, it might be a REST service that we could use in order to build a custom integration. So it might be batch class to be able to work with big um, data chunks. So it might be email service, which allow us to automate email processing and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty powerful tool, right? And it's actually allowing us to connect with database as well through Apex layer. So if we are talking about database, we need to store our data somewhere, and in Salesforce we have place for data as well. So we have a data table, and to be able to work with data tables, so we actually need to have like some instrument for that. And in Salesforce we have let's say SOQL and Social query language, and they're actually allowing us to do a structured queries with a filtering, ordering, and even possibility to search through relationship in order to be able to find required data. So here you could see just some example of it on Apex. So here we have select ID and name fields from the following data table account. If we need to make that query more selective, we could add like additional filtering condition. Then we could query parent from the child. Then we could query child from the parent, and we could add filtering, ordering. We could add the limitation for SQL query, but also at the same time, it's actually Salesforce object search language, which is searching across multiple objects, as you could see here. Like, for example, we are looking for that word in all fields which belongs to account or contacts. Like in here, you could see which fields we are looking for. So next tool that we need to talk about is every time when we are working on any kind of software development, we of course need to have some list of environments which is actually involved for us to build that specific solution. It might be some personal dev boxes for developers, it might be integration org, it might be testing org, QA org, UAT, then production, and sometimes training environments. To be able to easily and quickly promote code from one environment to another, we need to have a tool on some instrument which will allow us to do so. So in that case, Salesforce have their own solution, a native DevOps tool, which is called Salesforce DevOps Center. So it's the ICD tool where we could actually promote user stories or our changes from one environment to another with the help of pipeline. Make sure that our work items also could be managed there, right? So it's a pretty powerful tool, and on our channel we have another video about it. At the same time, here we have some competitors to this solution because Salesforce built it not so far. So here is, of course, we have Copado, we have a GearSet, we have Jenkins, we have Azure DevOps, right? So all these kind of tools could be used in order to be able to bring, like code from one environment to another. So sometime in the past, when I was working with the Salesforce company themselves, so they were using Jenkins, right, in order to be able to promote code from one environment to another, to be able to do an everyday work related to the automation tests running, related to unit tests running, and also for the jobs which were looking through the code and finding security vulnerabilities in the code and make sure that the code will be, like on the good level. So all this kind of stuff could be automated through DevOps, but it means that if we have DevOps, right, process, and in that case, clients might look for DevOps person, and in that case, we need to provide them that ability. So sometimes, like this person whom we will need to look for need to be able to have like knowledge in one of these tools, and especially sometimes client, for example, might have already Azure DevOps because they already Azure because they already use it for other processes, right? So that's why they might use Azure DevOps, and if we will need to look for DevOps person, we will need to look for the DevOps person who have experience in DevOps plus Salesforce, right? Because when we're deploying code from one environment to another, there might be deployment issues, and those deployment issues might require Salesforce knowledge. So next, let's say person and tools that we will discuss. It's a data engineer and data management tool, right? So we in the past saw situation when sometimes different companies migrating from one platform to another, for example, from IBM to Salesforce or wherever, and they need to migrate the complex data. And for this, we have the following tools like a data loader, Workbench, or dataloader.io. And we could use these tools to migrate complex data, right? When we, for example, need to migrate thousands of records or just a couple of them, we need to retrieve data from somewhere and then we need to transform it. Of course, for that, we need to use another tool. But in general, if you're looking for some expert who should be able to do some kind of work related to the data, so that person should definitely know these tools and their limitations related to data upload and update. So of course, because on the Salesforce, it's a complex platform, right, and contains complex solutions. This complex solution might have their own settings or their own customizations, which might be done manually. So it might be, for example, report builder, where our administrators or developers could actually build a report based on the specific objects, or look through them, right, try to filter them, and so on and so forth. So this is a configuration. Then we have some workflows are like a deprecated validation rules, right? So validation rules is a functionality which is allowing us to make sure that when the customer is actually trying to create a new record of the data into our database, that he is actually populated all required fields, or if, for example, some field is dependent on type, let's imagine that closed lost is actually dependent on stage. In that case, if the person selecting stage, he in that case needs to fill in information into the closed lost region, right? So we could make this, validation rules. Also, there might be assignment rule when we assign in the case directly to the specific group of people because they are working in that area. There might be approval rules when we need to send the specific, for example, quote for approval or specific order for approval or whatever, what is our object. So then we have escalation rule. For example, if nobody responded to a case for more than 4 hours, we might have a bot builder with the possibility to build some bot which will be automatically answer customer requests. We have prediction builder and other tools. So that means that any developer or admin who will work with the platform need to understand the configuration level as well. So then another part, which we need to admit that Salesforce developers are actually full stack developers. So they need to know how to work with front end, back end database, how to optimize the code, how to fit into limits, how to, make a right configurations and so on and so forth. So Salesforce developers are pretty, complex role, right? And Salesforce experts need to know a lot of different kind of stuff. And that's why Salesforce also have a thing called UI frameworks, right? Like, for example, Lightning Web Components, shortcut it's LVC. It's a modern UI framework introduced by Salesforce, and it should allow us to build fast, reusable, and scalable web application using the latest standards. And here you could see just some example of how we can build a code based on it. And let's say Salesforce really love it, developers really love it because it's working much faster than previous Aura components, and it's optimized for modern browsers, right? And components could be used across different Salesforce applications. So a lot of good stuff, related to this framework. But if on the project it will be required to build actually custom UI, so in that case, customers will expect that the person will definitely know LVC and APIs. So I think that you guys remember that we took through basic ideas of Salesforce, that it should be actually one platform for everything. And any system couldn't be platform for everything if there are no possibility to integrate it with other system. So that's why Salesforce actually contains a lot of standard APIs, which is available directly out of the box. They also provide a possibility to create Apex classes, which could be decorated with a specific decorator, and after that they will be available as a REST services. So custom APIs on the Salesforce side, right, with the specific annotations. And it allows us actually to integrate Salesforce with external system and external systems with the Salesforce. We could do real-time integration, near real-time integration, scheduled integration, so there are different approaches that we could apply, but in general, you should know that there is some layer related to APIs and possibility to build a custom API, and customers sometimes looking directly for the person who will set up integrations, right? So in that case, the person will need to understand about security related to integration, about how to build, can we use a standard API or we need to build a custom, and so on and so forth, and what is authorization related to it. So there's a different bunch of APIs, and when Salesforce acquires new companies, there might be new APIs which will come as well. Plus another thing which we need to consider is Salesforce mobile app. Sometimes for Salesforce, customers might request to use a mobile app, right? And in case if you're using mobile app, here we need to have a person who will be able to customize it. So that's why, if you see that guys asking for mobile app, just be aware that Salesforce has applications, right? One of them for iOS, another for Android. They are available on App Store and Google Play, and there are, like a lot of functionality for Salesforce mobile app itself. So now let's talk about Salesforce roles and their responsibilities. The first role that we will review is Salesforce administrator. So as we mentioned already, Salesforce is a platform where we have a lot of configurations. And we really need to support users who is actually using the system. So we need to be able to set up a right password for the person or help him to reset his password, enable or deactivate the users. If, for example, somebody just joined the company or somebody retired from the company, then there should be a possibility for that person to actually help with data changes or make a new field if it's like should be introduced, or for example in some field if you have a pick list, for example, add a new value or remove a value. Sometimes it's required for that person to do some kind of data management and process automation when some simple stuff need to be done. If there are complex stuff that need to be done, in that case we need to have a developer. So sometimes that person needs to build a reports, dashboards. So sometimes maybe install some application from App Exchange, right, to the org, set it up correctly, and train users how to actually use it, and to do some, like mostly click and point and click, like upgrades of the platform. And even it might be related to the Salesforce releases, right, upgrades of the platform. And these persons need to review that, for example, application is working correct. But here as well, we need to include one more skill, and skills I actually mentioned here, right, that the person needs to have a great communication skills, and plus the person needs to have experience in the specific cloud. Because as we mentioned, right, if company uses, for example, Sales Cloud, but your person worked in the past with the marketing cloud, knowledges are not really applicable to another product. So that person needs to train and upskill in order to be able to work as an admin for another cloud. So next one, and the most popular, it's Salesforce developer. So Salesforce developers, it's actually a role which is allow us to actually build all kind of customization or even custom applications on top of Salesforce, integrated with any kind of, like other system or even between two different Salesforce orgs. It's allow us to customize UI, do, like completely new data modeling or do some upgrades to it. Also build a custom UI with the help of Lightning Web Components or other like Aura or Visual Force. And this person, of course, responsible for doing tech design, for doing best practices when they're working with the code, to do a documentation of their code, use unit tests in order to make sure that their code is actually full functional and covered, make a custom application, even custom application for App Exchange, and we already discussed it a bit. And development of application for App Exchange is a little bit different than development of internal application. So each time when the company decides to release something to the App Exchange, so they really need to review their project for different kind of vulnerabilities and code, like checks. And the person who will lead that need to have a really strong experience in the security stuff, right, to be able to cover different kind of vulnerabilities and teach the team how to actually do so. So in terms of the skills, we need to admit the following. So Apex, of course, right, because that person usually working on the custom APIs or, for example, controllers for the classes or wherever, right, any invocable actions, for example, maybe some batches to do, big chunks of records, schedulers, and so on and so forth. All of this kind of stuff should be done with the help of Apex. Then we have LVC to build the UI, SoQL in order to be able to work with database APIs, right? Of course, the person needs to understand what is the basic of work with APIs. Do we have internal APIs on Salesforce? How to build a custom API and so on and so forth. Data modeling, because sometimes if we are modeling a database, right, we need to make sure that it's normalized and good database for our specific use case. Because if database will be not optimized, in that case there will be problems. So then process automation, right, with the help of the flows, like for example, and also configuration layer, right? So admins usually, not admins, but developers are also qualified enough to be able to do any kind of, let's say, cloud setup. Then security management, platform limits, and specific cloud experience. So as we mentioned earlier, right, if we need to customize Sales Cloud, so the person needs to have experience in the cloud. So then we have another role which is popular nowadays. It's Salesforce consultant. So it's a kind of role which is mixed together Salesforce administrator, a bit developer plus BA skills together. and plus good communication skills, plus possibility of the person to do a tech consultant, functional consultant, and also do some stakeholder management, right? So that person is actually helping business to solve their challenges and problems, right, with the help of the Salesforce platform. He listens to them, he suggests some options, right? He lets them know what might be the best option to implement it on Salesforce and so on and so forth. So there is a role which is related to Salesforce consultant, right? And if sometimes we are looking for this kind of persons, we of course need to take a look if they have all the skills, right, which are required for that person to have. So then we have DevOps. So DevOps is actually a person who will need to support CI/CD process, right? So he will set up, monitor, and improve DevOps process. So he will need to make sure that we have a monitoring in terms of pipeline, right? We have some test automation, which will be connected to different, let's say, security gates. So that person also need to understand, like what is a releases phase, right, and how releases are actually done, how to do a rollback if it's required, how to releases partially to environment, and so on and so forth, and monitor all of this and guide other teams how to actually use a pipeline. So we already touched a bit that DevOps tools most likely it's Azure, it's Git, Kappa, Gearset, and for manual steps there might be a run list, so the person should understand what is a run list management. So then, of course, we have people's like an Salesforce solution architect. So for these persons, we need to make sure that they could oversee, like entire project, build entire Salesforce solution. They understand Salesforce product, their limitations, how we can customize them, so they can actually to do an architecture of the solutions that actually secure, scalable, meet the business requirements. So all this kind of stuff. So it's actually, like everything is how for architect in any kind of another area, right? But in that case, we need to make sure that that person also knows Salesforce platform on the really good level. So he could do a right estimate. He have a strong tech and platform knowledge. He could lead the team. He has a good communication because if the person could not communicate and grab required information from the business, it will be hard for the person to actually build a right solution because he will not understand entire business, like problem and business domain and what that customer tried to achieve, right, and what's need to be automated and what should be, like the roadmap. Because based on the roadmap, if, for example, company prefer to have some specific feature very soon, right, and some of them later, and it could not be done like this. So, like all this kind of stuff will give a trouble. So that person need to understand integration, how they could be done, and software design principle plus cloud solution design principle, of course, plus risk management and fallback plans. So if you will talk about Salesforce technical architect, so that person, like should be experienced enough to lead the team, like dev teams, even a couple of them, right? So he needs to understand best practices in development and integrations. So he needs to identify risk, like include scalability, performance, and security, like and understand how to deal with them. So he needs to understand how to deal with big data volume, understand limitation of the platform, know Salesforce ICD process, and the main purpose, he is responsible for technical direction and implementation on the project. So it's a person who is trying to actually solve, like and show a way for dev teams how exactly to implement the specific feature or request of user story. So then, of course, we have a business analyst, right? There is nothing, like special about it, but it's always good if the business analyst who is planning to work with the Salesforce platform or on any project related to Salesforce will upskill himself with understanding of the Salesforce platform or maybe specific cloud, because like things like requirements gathering, right, user stories, requirements acceptance, like business process mapping, documentation, like presentation skills, all this kind of stuff, like are related to business analyst in any area, right? But here, like we have a Salesforce, so that's why we need to make sure that that person will be able to actually upskill himself with Salesforce skills. Then, of course, we have a product owner, right? And product owner usually discover, build a roadmap, doing a prioritization, like understand the user needs, work with a product vision, like and so on and so forth, right? I would believe that you guys understand who is a product owner. But in that case, that person who will manage backlog, right, need to understand Salesforce platform as well, their limitation, right, and some asks. And when guys will suggest something to that person based on the capabilities of Salesforce platforms, that person should be able to, like understand it, but it's not always just required from the beginning. So the same idea for the project manager, right? Just additional knowledge of Salesforce platform, it will be good to have, so that person will understand timeline better, right? And sprint plannings, understand what kind of limitations are actually behind the team concerns, and so on and so forth. So now if you will take a look into numbers, right, what is, like number of position in the current market, we could see that number of consultants now increased, right? And guys are looking for consultants, especially in UK, I would believe. So developers were always popular, and solution architects and technical architects, like have a little bit less percentage, just because on the project where we have, for example, 50 developers, right, we need, for example, 1-2 solution architects and maybe a couple of technical architects. If you're not talking about enterprises where we need to have a different architects for everything, like an infrastructure architect, solution architect, like a security architect, and so on and so forth. So administrators the most popular, right? And then we have a business analyst as well who is working with the teams, but it's, as usual. So what we need to consider when we are looking for resume of Salesforce experts. So we need first of all to make sure that we have a role specifics stuff. Like for example, for administrator, of course, the person should have knowledge about data management, report generation, validation rule creation, like all this kind of stuff, right? Which usually could be done manually, and plus, if there will be any kind of additional things, like the person did some customization of the platform, set up some even maybe easy components, right? With the help of the flow, it always will be a plus for administrators. So for developers, of course, there should be, like bunch of everything, right? There should be Apex, Lightning, data modeling, integration flows, like some patterns of good development, right? Code smells and all this kind of stuff. So for consultants, there should be, like strategy development, assessment of the project, like project management and all this kind of stuff, plus knowledge of the specific clouds. Then, like what we should take a look in addition. So sometimes we could see that when we review the resumes, CVs, we could see that persons, for example, worked for 3 years as an administrator, and after that immediately started work in a position of architect, right? And that person would like to come to us an architect, right? So usually we need to take into consideration years of experience and relevant technical skills of the person, right? If we see some gaps, we need to, like see it from CV if it's possible. So, and also we are looking here for certification. So certification is actually good stuff if the person has it, right? But it's not like a must-have sometimes, but for some clients it's really must-have. And they indicate if that person was able to actually invest maybe some money or some his time or her time into getting these certificates. Based on the information of what I have, right, there might be two types of the way how guys getting certificates. Sometimes they are really learning, right, and understand what is actually required to get the certificate. Sometimes guys learning from dumps, right, and even sometimes without understanding. So I saw, like persons with, like one certificate with years of strong experience, right, or the person with, I don't know, like 29 certificates who is, like was more like a middle developer, right? And it's really depend on, like how guys actually got these certificates, but it's always good to have them, right? If person have it, it's another plus. And if they really were passed them through themselves, right? So it's always good. Especially it's required for situation when we are looking, for example, for specialists in the service cloud, and we have some person with a service cloud specialist certificate, right? It's another, let's say, indicators that might be that person know well this, right? And plus we will need to take a look if in his CV we have, like a couple of times on different project mentioned that he was working with that specific cloud. What else? So about integration with third parties. So sometimes we are looking for the person who is, like strong, for example, person with strong integration skills. And so what we will need to take a look is which let's say platforms that person was able to do an integration, right? What was his experience? Did he just made an like one call out from Salesforce and it's like everything what is related to integration, or that person have like enough experience in understanding all of aspects related to like authorization, security, passing parameters, different type of like calls, what type of API better to use for different data volumes. Should it be real time, near real time, scheduled integration, right? Or should it be some another type of it? So all this kind of stuff we need to check for the person whom we're looking for project where we need integration. skill plus business acumen. So because when we are working with a Salesforce in general, it's a business tool, right? And the person who is working with this, right, need to have an understanding of the platform and how this platform allowing to solve business problems, right? So that's why it's really, really good if the person will have an understanding of the specific business, right? Because that person after joining will be able to understand internal conversations, right, and not just learn new words for themselves. And then, of course, problem solving skills, because usually when we are working with new products development, we have, like any project have defects. They could be found through the testing, right? And when we're doing it, we need to find out the person who will be able easily understand, do a debugging, like find out what is a problem area and all this kind of stuff. So from where guys could actually learn some skills which they don't have. So let's imagine that you find out a person, for example, for a specific project, and the person is, for example, 90% match, and you would like to just take a look if that person could, for example, gain additional skills, like very quickly, right? Like, for example, learn some specific setup or some specific cloud or whatever. So for this, we could use Trailhead, right? Trailhead is an official learning platform from Salesforce. So it's offering free, self-placed, like interactive modules where we could, have articles just to read, or we could have, let's say, some projects to build, or some, like badges that we could get from the platform, right? And on the platform, we even could get a certification. Plus, we are passing quizzes, right? So the platform just making sure that we have a right content, we could investigate it for free, and we could build our knowledges. So that's why it's one of the platforms where guys could gain their experience and, like build or close some gaps that they have. So another way to learn it, so online courses, of course, and through the platform, we could also get a certificate. So if we are going to the official site, we could jump through different roles, right, which we discovered a bit, like, for example, Salesforce administrator, architect, developer. So we could click on them, right, and see what might be the certificates related to that specific role, right? So it might be IE specialist, right? It's very popular now, and it's actually free certificate by the end of that year, right? So as you could see, first attempt is for free. So then there are, like different kind of like a developer one, developer two certificates, right? Which is indicates that you're a developer. For architect, it's their own, like certifications, right? And we could take a look, like which certifications actually related to each role. Like here's some example, right? Administrator user usually have administrator, advanced administrator, business analyst, platform ad builders, or maybe some CPQ specialist. So Salesforce developer usually have platform developer one, platform developer two, platform app builder, JavaScript, marketing cloud, and then like wherever we want. So some consultant or BA might have a business analyst and specific cloud related certifications. Plus, on top of it, if we could see that some person whom we are looking for architect, for example, position have a different bunch of certificates which are related to architecture. So from here we could find out so where they might be. Like, for example, if they have application architects, they're past that like way. When they have system architects, they are here. If they even have technical architects, then they did a big journey in order to get it. So the same for solution architecture path. So that's why we can consider like what we have. So in general, it's just in a few words how we need to look for Salesforce specialists, what we need to consider. We need to be very careful with the clouds. We need to be careful with reviewing of candidates. But of course, always I would believe that the last step, which is allowing us to really understand if that specific candidate is actually good for our project or not, right? It's of course technical interview where we could ask required questions, right? We could see how a person actually deal with it, what kind of experience the person have, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much, guys, for being with me for the long, and I wish you all the best.